You see a red apple. The apple isn't red. Your brain constructs redness from wavelength data, a translation, not a direct perception. The solidity of the table under your hand, mostly empty space, stabilized by electromagnetic forces your nervous system interprets as resistance. The sound of a voice reaching your ears, pressure waves in air converted to electrical signals assembled into meaning by processes you didn't choose and can't observe. Everything you call the world is a model your brain builds from sensory fragments, a constructed experience. But here is what makes the model convincing. Other people confirm it. You say, red apple, and they nod. You touch the table, and they feel it too. The world feels solid because it's shared, a collective construction stabilized by agreement. This is the foundation of everything you believe about reality, consensus. Now, consider what is not shared. You have never experienced another person's consciousness, not once. No one has ever experienced yours. Every confirmation of reality, every nodded agreement, every yes, I see it too, comes from minds whose inner worlds are completely inaccessible to you. You take their word for it, but you have no way to check. The entire structure of shared reality rests on testimony from witnesses whose interior lives you cannot verify. This asymmetry is not a coincidence. It is the single most important fact about your existence, and it goes almost entirely unnoticed, which raises a question no instrument can answer. What if the witnesses are not separate at all? What if there is only one consciousness looking through different windows? Before we dive in, if this kind of content resonates with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you. You'll find the link in the top comment below. Now let's get back into it. In 1943, a physicist took this asymmetry seriously enough to follow it to its conclusion. Erwin Schrödinger had already helped rewrite the foundation of physics. His wave equation described the behavior of quantum systems with extraordinary precision. He understood that at the deepest level of material reality, the observer could not be removed from the observation. But he went further than most of his colleagues were willing to go. The total number of minds in the universe is 1. These 8 words were not mysticism. They were the conclusion of a man who had spent decades examining the structure of physical reality and found that consciousness refused to fit anywhere within it. Schrödinger saw where this was leading. If you can only verify one consciousness, your own, and every other mind is an inference, then the simplest model is not that there are billions of separate consciousnesses running in parallel. The simplest model is that there is one field of awareness, individuated by nervous systems it passes through, appearing as many because the filters differ. This was not speculation. It was simply the most obvious conclusion. And it exposes something most of his successors have quietly sidestepped. Consciousness presents science with a category problem, not a measurement problem. You cannot access first-person experience with third-person instruments. Not because the instruments are unsuitable, because the direction of inquiry is wrong. Consider a computer processor. You can analyze the processor down to the transistor level. You can measure voltage, clock speed, thermal output, signal propagation. You can describe every physical property of the silicon with extraordinary precision. You now possess a complete third-person account of what the processor is doing, and you still cannot find the meaning of the content it's processing. The meaning of the content exists at a level of description the instrument cannot reach. Not because your instruments lack resolution, because meaning is not a physical property of transistors. It is what the pattern represents. Consciousness presents the same problem, multiplied by infinity. The brain's physical activity is the processor. Subjective experience is the content. And every instrument science can build analyzes the processor. Neurons are firing, but the content is never registered. When people hear the claim that science cannot explain consciousness, something interesting happens. They immediately picture the other side of the argument as unreliable. Mystics, people who talk to spirits, people who believe in souls without evidence. The assumption is that the problem lies with consciousness itself, that it's too slippery, too subjective, too resistant to measurement. Not that science might be using the wrong tool for the question. This one-sided skepticism is what the philosopher Thomas Nagel walked directly into. In 1974, Nagel published a paper titled, "What is it like to be a bat?" The question sounds almost whimsical. It is not. A bat navigates through echolocation, emitting high-frequency sounds and reading the returning echoes to build a three-dimensional map of its environment. Science can describe echolocation exhaustively. The neural pathways, the acoustic physics, the behavior responses. Every third-person fact about echolocation is accessible. But none of this tells you what it's like to be a bat. The experience of echolocation, the felt quality of navigating a cave through sound, is accessible only from the inside. You cannot reach it by collecting more data about bat neuroanatomy. You can only reach it by being a bat. Nagel's point was devastating in its simplicity. There are facts about consciousness that are necessarily first person. They cannot be translated into third-person descriptions without losing what they are. The experience of redness, the taste of salt, the feeling of recognition when you see a familiar face. These are not data points awaiting better instruments. They are a different category of thing entirely. And yet the scientific method is built entirely on third-person verification. A finding counts as scientific only if it can be observed, measured, and replicated by independent observers. The method works by removing the individual perspective, by making the observer interchangeable. This is precisely what gives science its power. And it is precisely what makes it structurally incapable of accessing first-person experience. Consider what happens when you try to describe the color red to someone who has never seen it. You can offer wavelengths, neural correlates, cultural associations. You can say everything science can say about redness. And you have not come close to communicating the experience. Now imagine trying to explain this for consciousness itself. Not one quality of experience, redness, saltiness, recognition, but the entire field within which all experience occurs. the thing that is having the experiences. This is not a gap waiting to be filled, it is a category error built into the structure of the method. Wittgenstein understood this. He offered an image. Everyone has a box containing something they call a beetle. No one can look inside anyone else's box. The word beetle doesn't refer to whatever is inside. It refers to whatever role it plays in the shared language game. The contents might be different for everyone. The box might be empty. The word works either way. Consciousness terms function identically. Everyone uses the word pain. Everyone points to the same external causes. But whether the interior experience is the same, whether your pain and my pain share any qualitative feature, is a question no third-person method can address. The word works because it works in the shared game of language, not because it refers to a shared interior reality. This is the structural blind spot. And it forces a question most of the conversation avoids. If every instrument science can build looks at consciousness from the outside, if the method itself requires the observer to be interchangeable and the phenomenon to be publicly verifiable, then the hard problem of consciousness is not a problem waiting to be solved. It is a limitation built into the method itself. The standard model assumes consciousness is produced by the brain. Neurons fire, complexity accumulates. At some threshold, subjective experience emerges. Consciousness, in this view, is something the brain generates, it produces an output. But there is an alternative model, one that serious thinkers across multiple traditions arrived at independently, and one that is increasingly supported by data the production model struggles to explain. William James founded American psychology. He was not a mystic. He was the author of the first psychology textbook used in American universities. And in 1898, he proposed something radical. The brain, James argued, does not produce consciousness, it filters it. Think of consciousness not as steam rising from the brain, but as light passing through a stained glass window. The window does not generate the light, it shapes what passes through, narrowing it, coloring it, restricting an infinite field to a manageable stream. The brain, in this view, is not a generator, it is a reducing filter. James arrived at this from clinical observation. He noticed that certain states, fever, anesthesia, mystical experience, seem to expand the range of consciousness content rather than diminish it. If the brain produces consciousness, reducing the brain function should reduce consciousness. Instead, the opposite often occurs. Aldous Huxley extended the metaphor. The brain, he wrote, screens out the majority of incoming information, leaving only the narrow bandwidth necessary for survival. The function of the filter is not to create experience, it is to limit it. And then there was Schrödinger, arriving at the same conclusion from quantum mechanics, not from psychology. The eye is not the product of the organism. The organism is an aperture through which the eye looks. Three thinkers, three different starting points, one model. Now consider what modern neuroscience has discovered. The default mode network is a set of brain regions active during ordinary waking consciousness. The internal monologue, the sense of separate self, the running commentary on experience. During meditation, the DMN quiets. During psychedelic experiences, it quiets. During near-death experiences, it shuts down entirely. If the brain produces consciousness, reduced brain activity should reduce subjective experience. Instead, the opposite consistently occurs. Meditators report expanded awareness. Psychedelic subjects describe encounters with dimensions of reality ordinarily inaccessible. And the near-death experience, you already know the pattern. A person clinically dead, no measurable brain activity, returns with a structured, coherent experience. Not a loss of coherence, an intensification. The Dutch cardiologist Pim van Lommel published a prospective study in The Lancet. His team interviewed cardiac arrest survivors within days of resuscitation. The findings were unambiguous. These experiences occurred during periods of clinical death. No heartbeat, no respiration, no measurable brain function. The production model says this should not happen. The filter model says this is exactly what you would expect if the filter temporarily shut off. Neuroscience gave us the DMN. Cardiology gave us the van Lommel data. Even science produced the very findings that its own framework cannot explain. For centuries, contemplative traditions across cultures built a mythology the West dismissed. They were not speculating about consciousness, they were running experiments. The laboratory was their own awareness. The instrument was attention itself. The data was direct experience, first person, unmediated, systematically investigated. This wasn't just philosophy, it was serious research. Buddhist meditators mapped the structure of subjective experience with extraordinary precision. Vedantic practitioners traced consciousness back to its source through systematic self-inquiry. Sufi mystics described stations of awakening that read like a taxonomy of interior states. The Gnostics spoke of the nous, the direct knowing faculty, as the only instrument capable of apprehending its own ground. Different vocabularies, different cultural containers. The methodology: turn attention inward and observe. And here's what they all reported. Consciousness is not a product of the individual organism. It is the ground within which the organism appears, the sense of being a separate self, the I that feels like the thinker of thoughts, is itself a phenomenon arising within consciousness, not its source. The brain does not generate awareness. The brain modulates what awareness has access to. This is arguably the oldest idea about consciousness that exists. It appears in the Upanishads, in the perennial philosophy, in Meister Eckhart, in the Gnostic Gospels. It was simply excluded from the conversation when the conversation became exclusively scientific. Not because it was disproven, but because the method had no way to address it. And this is exactly what Nagel identified. First-person phenomena require first-person investigation. You cannot study the interior of consciousness with instruments that only register exteriors. Imagine trying to understand what a novel is about by analyzing the chemical composition of the ink. You could describe the ink exhaustively, the molecular structure, the pigment, distribution, the binding agents. you would have a complete third-person account of the ink, and you would have learned nothing about the story. Consciousness is the story. The brain is the ink. The contemplative traditions understood this. They didn't analyze the ink. They read the story, and they passed the reading method down through generations. A reproducible technique for turning attention back toward its own source. The question is not whether science can explain consciousness. The question is whether science, as currently constituted, is willing to acknowledge that some phenomena require the investigator to become the instrument. Every thought you are having right now, including the thought evaluating this sentence, is occurring within consciousness. You cannot step outside it. You cannot place it on a table and examine it from a distance. Every instrument, every measurement, every peer-reviewed paper, all of them happen inside the very thing being studied. You are not looking at consciousness, you're looking from it. And this changes everything. The filter theory suggests something that may feel uncomfortable. Not that your consciousness is somehow limited or defective. That your brain is functioning exactly as designed. Narrowing an infinite field down to a manageable stream, enough to navigate a physical world and maintain the sense of being a separate self moving through it. The question is not what is wrong with your filter. The question is what lies on the other side of it. This is what the Contemplatives were doing. Not escaping reality, not retreating into fantasy. They were conducting the only kind of investigation that can access what consciousness actually is. They were tuning the light back toward its source. And they left instructions, not belief systems, but practical techniques, procedures you can verify in your own direct experience, because no third-person verification is possible, and none is needed. The verification is the experience itself. This is not mysticism against science. It is one methodology for one kind of question and another methodology for another. The error is not in science as such. The error is in assuming one methodology is sufficient for every question worth asking. The hard problem of consciousness is hard not because consciousness is complicated. It is hard because the method we brought to the question was built for a different kind of question entirely. You can analyze the processor. You cannot find the content there. You can study the ink. You cannot read the story there. You can measure brain activity. You cannot access the experience there. What Schrödinger understood, what Nagel demonstrated, what James proposed, what the contemplative traditions built an entire civilization of practice around, is that the investigator cannot be removed from the investigation. You are the thing you are trying to understand. Nobody can do it for you. If this resonated with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you there, and you'll also receive my newsletter with thoughts and inspiration behind each video. You'll find the link in the top comment below.